Welcome to the Albertapreneur podcast, where we celebrate self-employment in Alberta. I'm your host, Jason Bacon. I'm an author, founder, and longtime lover of entrepreneurship. Through my career, I've been able to advise hundreds of self-employed individuals across the province, and I've always been inspired by their stories. That's where the podcast comes in. We're going to be digging into the stories of those people, and in particular, the graduates of the self-employment training program. For those who don't know, this is a program in partnership with the province of Alberta as well as the government of Canada, and it provides training and support to entrepreneurs who are unemployed or underemployed. And if you qualify for funding, it won't cost you anything but time. You may even receive funding while you take it. In particular, this podcast is focused on the graduates of the execuserv Plus training program in Lethbridge. They've been graduating entrepreneurs for more than 20 years and continue to do so. Something that I always say, and is the lesson of my book, Entrepreneur-ish, is that entrepreneur is a verb, not a noun. It's not a title, but a set of actions. And it's in that spirit that we're talking about the stories and actions of the people around you who have taken that leap of faith and tried to make it on their own. Let's get to it. So the title of today's podcast is The Naive Pioneer, and I am really excited. When I was putting this podcast together and talking to a few people, there was really only one person that in my mind fit as being the first interview, and that being Gillian Nish, who a lot of people in Lethbridge would know because she's helped a lot of those individuals in some capacity. And, you know, we're going to get into her story and what that means. But, you know, the word pioneer is associated a lot with Gillian, not only because of what she's done in her own business, but because of what she's done for others in their business as well. The naive part was an addendum by her, which I absolutely love and I think is so true to the spirit of entrepreneurship. But the core of it is, you know, Gillian has graduated more than 1,600 people through the self-employment training program in about the past 22 years in Lethbridge and really across southern Alberta. And she's the reason that Albertapreneur as a podcast even exists, to talk about those graduates. And so she's the one that had to be the first interview. So Gillian, welcome.
Thanks, Jason. I'm happy to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm excited for this. And, you know, I think that your story is one that not a lot of people necessarily know and can offer a lot of inspiration to people. And so I want to dive right into it. So take us back. And I didn't know if I was going to point this out. You said 1988 is when you started your business?
May 18th, 1988.
I was 2 months old. I was born in March of 1988.
There you go. 2 months old, right.
There you go.
So you were following me along then, right?
You along.
You bet. Oh my gosh, yes.
You took this jump. You had a pretty steady job, right? You were working.
I did.
Us a little bit about what you were doing before the jump.
My background was in tourism and hospitality, Jason, and I was executive director for the province, not the government side, but the private sector side, where it represented all the campgrounds, bed and breakfasts, and hotels, motels, and food and beverage sector. And I was in charge of that. I had a board of directors that I would report to once a month, and our mandate was to promote and develop tourism in Alberta. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we did do, we came up with a slogan, or I came up with a slogan, "Smile, you're a tourist attraction." And it's amazing. Some people remember it. You, of course, would never ever hear that. I have clients though that come to our program now that I said, I remember that. I was teething when I was hearing that "Smile, you're a tourist attraction."
Yeah.
Then along one day, Jason, it's as simple or as difficult as this. That's why I call myself a little naive. A little naivete does not hurt anyone initially.
Yeah.
And I wanted to move back to Lethbridge. I was in Calgary. I decided to move back to Lethbridge because I was a graduate of the college here. Mm-hmm. And I started execuserv Plus Inc. I sat at my kitchen table, filled out my own incorporation forms, and sat there and went, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Is this going to work or not? And I said to myself, I'm going to retire with this company. This company's going to work. And those are the words that I used, and that was 1988, and my gosh, here we are in 2022.
Wow.
And
a lot has changed since then too, right?
Jason,
That's the nature of it.
Listen, the most exciting piece of equipment I had in my office was a fax machine with a telephone. Like, that was dynamite.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah. Did you have a separate line for the fax too?
Yes. So it was.
You meant business.
Oh, it was something else, right?
So what was the initial execuserv? What was
Well, initially, because of my background in tourism, I had quite a very strong relationship with Travel Alberta. And at that particular time, they were looking for consultants to lead all the different communities in Alberta through a community tourism action plan. Oh, cool. So it's all what we call strategic planning today, basically. And I was able to secure a contract with Travel Alberta to do a series of community tourism action plans. So that's what fed me for probably the first 10 years of my operation with execuserv, because I was home-based. So I did community tourism action plans. It was a 2-day session. It went out to all kinds of different little towns and places. Balzac, for example. Bow Island, like some of these places, you go 3 hills.
All the way, where did you go up to Northern Alberta too? All over?
No, they'd actually split the province. So I was taking communities south of Calgary. Oh, wow. And I did 56 of those. And that was quite the legacy then. And it was a great program. And then, of course, as I went out and met all these people, I was able to also do feasibility studies. I did feasibility studies. I did marketing plans for bed and breakfasts, and I had a buildup of tourism clientele. Yeah, and it was absolutely great.
That's really cool, and I love that, when you look at the business that you've built, the idea of you've worked with government.
Worked with government a lot, training, Jason.
Right?
Yes,
these elements of what execuserv became, you were already pursuing in a different way with your business. Maybe that's that naivete a little bit more. You didn't even know what it was going to turn into.
I didn't, Jason. I mean, I went from tourism and hospitality to being asked to be keynote speakers, doing needs analysis and lots of a real variety of clients. Yeah. And I was doing okay, and I was quite happy being home based.
Yeah, absolutely.
But today when I think about it, and I always tell our clients that go through this self-employment program that we're going to talk about in a few minutes, I always say you'll never know where you'll end up in 10 years time. Yeah. You may start out home based, but you'll never know where your business is going to take you. Yeah. I agree with that. A little naivete is good, Jason, until you start to realize, okay, now you've got to start paying attention to what it's truly like to be an entrepreneur, truly to be self-employed, because really I went from self-employed to being a small business owner, and I never dreamed I'd come out into a commercial storefront and have staff. Yeah. Right. But I took a huge risk. I took a huge risk in 1999, and I received an opportunity to bid on a gigantic contract through the provincial government called the Self-Employment Program, which is a fairly well-known program throughout the province. Yeah. But there were 24 different organizations that were delivering that type of program.
Absolutely.
So I went into the competition, and it was, again, a little bit of that naivete. When I looked at the list of the companies that I was going up against, and it was just me. Yeah. I went, am I really going to do this? And I thought, Gillian, if you don't, what's going to happen? Okay. If you do it, great. At least you've done it. And if you don't get it, you don't get it. Yeah.
But I want to dig into that a little bit, because that's a fairly significant shift in your business.
Huge.
When you're talking about that. And
was
you're
huge.
dealing with a time of other change with the technology age, right? As you're just there going into 2000 and the tech bubble, right? There's a lot of unknown factors at that point in time. You're doing a change in your business, and you're going up against people that are larger organizations
Yes,
that have also done the contract for a decade. So
exactly.
I think that, and it's my favorite question to ask entrepreneurs: why? What was that motivation?
Well, first of all, because I really wanted to, and I really felt that I had the skills to be able to do it. And I thought, if I'm going to retire with this company, eventually the workshops there'll be other companies coming along to do workshops and strategic planning. And I was always interested in helping other people, and I thought, I would really like to help entrepreneurs, because I didn't have the access to the resources that entrepreneurs have today.
No,
It's amazing, Jason, what I've seen change over the last 22 years. It's the different groups that are out there that are wonderful. Our entrepreneurial ecosystem just in Southern Alberta is fabulous. And so I took that I took that chance. I knew it was a big chance. But I wanted to do it.
Yeah, give others
I
access
wanted
what
to
you
do it.
didn't have.
I never, listen, I'll be very honest with you. I never dreamed I would ever get it.
No.
I never dreamed I would get it, but I went, I've got to try it.
Yeah.
And I was shortlisted.
Yeah.
And was asked to make a presentation. And the incumbent was sitting in the hallway when I came in to do my presentation. So if you don't think that was a big risky day, it was something else.
Yeah.
But I won it, and I put together the program that I knew that startups would want, and it has changed. And like you say, Jason, I mean, we're talking 22 years. I've had to change enormously. You know, the old class, the big classroom I had set up, this was just wonderful. I had a whiteboard. And flip charts.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I'd really made it. And that's how we talk. And one of those, I call overhead projectors with the transparencies.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and that was, look how fast things have changed. And now the setup I have now is second to none. But I have seen a lot of changes. Somebody asked me if you could actually, can anybody be an entrepreneur? And I said, I suppose anybody could be an entrepreneur if you're really willing to roll up your sleeves and roll with the punches and really know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
You really need to do your research, especially today, more so today than when I started. I'm not saying it was easy when I started.
Yeah.
But you really need to do your research.
Yeah.
But I was out there and I would go to events and people would ask me for a business card. I'd hand them a business card. They'd say, how's business, Gillian? And I'd tell them, it's great. It's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
When I only had a nickel in my pocket, maybe, but it was all about attitude. And learning from other people. Yeah, I never dreamed that that I would ever be so successful as to help 1,600 people in southwestern Alberta.
Yeah.
And we've seen some really successful businesses.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, when I look back, I go, gee, see, as entrepreneurs, we don't stop and look back to see, oh, gee, this is what I really did. I never ever think of that. So when I'm called a pioneer, I'm going like, no, was I really a pioneer, or was I really just?
Yeah, I love that, and the idea that it takes a little bit of naivete to get into it, and a whole lot of whether you want to talk about commitment, perseverance,
tremendous commitment,
and
perseverance,
the ability to adapt to get through it, right? And I love how part of your story is saying, hey, I know that at the end I want to retire with this business.
Yes.
Right. And maybe not knowing, that might be point J or K, but not necessarily knowing B, C, D along the way.
Exactly.
But being comfortable with adapting, right?
And that is not as easy as one can say. That we can say adapt to the to the business. Easy for us to say,
Yeah.
but okay,
Let's
go
talk
ahead
about
and
that,
try that.
because you're somewhat of a master of change, right? In terms
Oh.
of your business has survived this long because you've been able to adapt and change. So
Exactly.
what would you're out there right now, and I'm a firm believer, you take a look at the next 10 years, and one thing that I very frequently will tell entrepreneurs is that the next 10 years will more than likely see more change than the last 100.
Exactly.
Right? And so what do
Say
they do?
the same
How
thing.
do they deal with it? When
Yes.
you've been doing this for your career, really. So what would be, a piece of advice that you would give to those entrepreneurs listening right now that need to deal with that change? What would you say?
If they want to survive, Jason, really, truly, if they want to survive and be ahead of the competition, or at least stay level with the competition,
Mhm.
they're going to have to do it. I would, in terms of our training center today, it doesn't look like anything when I started 22 years ago. I mean, we moved from, and again, thinking that the only thing I had on my desk back in '88 wasn't even a computer then.
Yeah.
Now with computer, and I've got a hybrid system, and it's a risk. Being an entrepreneur is a risk.
That's
and
the
if
leap
you're
of faith,
not willing,
right?
and if you're not willing to take that risk, I always tell the entrepreneurs, yes, you take a risk, but make sure it's a calculated risk.
Yes,
that you're doing.
Risk.
That's the important part.
I love it. And you've mentioned that a couple of times here. You talked about, you put together a program that you knew that entrepreneurs would want.
Well,
right?
I felt that what I went through, I thought someone's got to be able to teach that.
Absolutely.
Somebody as an entrepreneur, I could actually tell them, like, here's my story. And then, of course, if I can do it, you can do it. But we know that isn't always the way it goes. It's more than it's an attitude, Jason. It really is an attitude.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have any discipline, you've got to have a lot of discipline, and you've got to take a lot of criticism too. Along the way. I mean, gee, we hear that this execuserv, oh, Gillian, oh my gosh, usually it's. There aren't many Gillians out there doing exactly what I'm doing. I'm hoping it's growing more and more. But I never ever thought of me being a pioneer, because I just adapted to the flow.
It's funny because I think that ties into what you said with, entrepreneurs are so focused on the future and what they want to do that they're not necessarily looking back. Right. And that's sometimes can be an important thing to do, is to look back, see where you've gotten, what you've learned, taking those things, like, even if it's just unknowingly taking those things that you had, like, hey, I know how to deal with government and contracts and RFPs, which we could do a whole other podcast on that world.
Right. Yes.
But knowing, hey, I do know how to deliver training, and I do know what entrepreneurship is in a unique way, and putting that all together in something that is beyond even what you probably even thought was possible. Right, when you started around that kitchen table in 1988.
I'll tell you, Jason, and also having that self-confidence, that self-confidence is a huge thing. Mm-hmm. You've got to have that self-confidence, and you've got to have that self-esteem.
Sure.
You really do. You've got to. You really have to. One of my favorite sayings, and I mean it's said all the time now, but it's fake it till you make it. And when I first heard that, I went,
even when you just got a nickel in your pocket.
Yeah, exactly. A nickel, right? Fake it till you make it, because the more you fake it in your mind, the more you believe it, and the more you will do.
Yeah.
And because I never quite understood what that meant, and then when I really thought about it, I went, you bet.
I like that.
Bet. Yeah.
And I think that's a really important point, because increasingly now there's this, the issue with mental health in Canada in general, and as a result of isolation, as a result of everything that's going on, but it's getting even worse with entrepreneurs. And we talk about, that naivete that it takes to get in, partially because being a business owner means you're not just doing the thing you love anymore. You have all this other stuff that you're doing that, we'll teach you, we'll help you along the way through this program. Absolutely. Right.
Yes.
But it still is that stressor. And I think a lot of people feel that, especially entrepreneurs. And so
very much so.
There's that self-defeatist attitude sometimes that creeps in. Right. So have you ever had moments like that in your business?
Oh, I'd be a liar if I didn't say that I didn't have some down times, Jason. I would go, what the heck am I doing? Really?
So what do you go back to? How do you get through that? What do you do?
Well, there's an old song that goes, pick yourself up and dust yourself off and start all over again. You go, you just, I don't know, you just do it. There's something, there's an innate ability that says, okay, we all have bad days.
Yeah.
Have I made bad decisions in my business? Of course, I'd be a liar if I said I hadn't.
Sure.
Have I made decisions that I regret? Yes. Would I share those regrets?
Yeah.
Absolutely, with a new entrepreneur. Just anything that can help them avoid some of the mistakes I learned along the way, because I certainly wasn't the perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect entrepreneur anyway.
They all make mistakes, right? And one of my favorite definitions of strategy is in knowing what not to do.
Exactly.
And that idea of just over time and experience, and by leveraging other people's experience, right? Because it's, hey, come and if you're eligible for the self-employment program, come in, take it. And get access to that experience, right?
I love this program, Jason. I think it's a wonderful program, and I think that it's. I actually wish that if this program had been around when I started, it had been like, I don't know, like heaven, sitting around a table with other like-minded individuals. I was very much alone, although, I chose to resign and do my own thing, but I was by myself, and it can get very, very lonely out there.
Isolating.
And that's why we talk about you've got to get up, you've got to be seen, especially if you're home-based. You got to get out. People have to see you. They have to trust you.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. And like even in my own business with Sunstone, the idea, like, because I started in the middle of COVID, right?
Yes.
And I'm an introvert by nature. Like I recharge my batteries being alone, and that worked really great for me for a little bit.
Yes.
But you get to this point where it's a negative, and it can be tough to find that motivation until you get out there. Put yourself with people that get it, with people that understand, because we live in these bubbles despite our best efforts, right?
Very true.
Yeah. And
very true.
You've created that environment here at the very least, which is fantastic.
Well, when we continue and we continue to monitor trends, Jason, we make sure that we are dealing with the most up-to-date information. And staying up with the times, and also contracting with very excellent facilitators who are entrepreneurs themselves, because I feel I don't need to do all of the facilitation. Could I do it? I suppose I could. Where I don't think that gives much advantage to our entrepreneurs, because they need to meet different people. They need to learn how to adjust and work with different behaviors, and that's why we have such a variety of professional top-notch facilitators that make this program work. And I work very hard at seeing that we stay up to date with that.
I agree, and it's it's funny because I tell people all the time that I used to facilitate teaching parts of the program, and then I took the program. And I never, it's not even necessarily from a place of arrogance. It probably is. I try to check that kind of thing. But I really went in thinking that I was well positioned to start a business. I had all of this knowledge. I'd worked to educate other entrepreneurs. I'd advised hundreds of entrepreneurs in all areas of their business.
Yes.
And then I took the program, and I remember one day in week 3 where I was like, oh my God, there's so much I didn't even think about. There's so much I didn't even consider. And it's those perspectives of people that are like, hey, I get it. I'm an expert in sales. I'm an expert in stress. I'm an expert in whatever it is, business planning, strategy, whatever it is you need to deal with. But also I'm an entrepreneur, and I get it on a different level. I think that was something that really helped me through that, right?
Oh, that's wonderful. And I'm hoping that when in future podcasts that you do, that you will hear some of that come out in your discussions, in terms of some of our folks.
Absolutely.
Because they come in, and they come in really thinking that they really do know what to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the thing is, we have to switch them from an employee mindset to an entrepreneur mindset, and that's tough.
That's a gear shift.
That's tough to shift over, to get you to think and act like an entrepreneur. Well, 82% of our success rate, 82% have got it and know what
Which
they're
is
doing.
awesome,
It's
right?
just love it.
And luckily we'll be able to talk to more of these people over the next little bit, which I'm really excited for.
Yeah, and I can't wait to hear their comments and that, because they've done very well.
They have, and we are close to the end of time here, and I want to get back to a couple of things.
Okay.
One is, we've talked a lot about change. I feel like the past 20 minutes or so, and for as much as that has changed, what hasn't changed in terms of like entrepreneurship? You know what I mean? Like, what's something that you would say has remained somewhat static as a pillar that, like, just generally good advice maybe for an entrepreneur? What's
this may vary. This might surprise you, and this might not be the answer you're looking for. But what has kept me successful is my soft skills that have kept me successful. Jason, I know that we need to know how to do a business plan. We need to do financial planning. We need to do strategic planning.
That's
we
a rehearsed
need to do sales planning.
We have to do business
planning.
planning.
We have to do all that. But I've got to tell you that I think that my success has really been through my soft skills, through my mannerisms, being able to meet people and to talk to people and to speak up and show that self-confidence, not an ego, not in an egotistical sort of way, but to display that confidence. And we're really lacking in soft skills. That's a sad part that I've seen that really, to me, hasn't changed. It should always be there. And I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a real emphasis now on soft skills. Being able to communicate properly, getting people to speak up, and look you in the eye, and watch your behaviors, watch your facial expressions. And a lot of people listening may go, "Oh, for heaven's sakes!" But I'm telling you that somebody's always watching.
It's true.
Somebody's always watching.
And I think that somewhat is discounted now with the digital age. And I don't think we're going to go fully back into digital. Like, we're going to see this hybrid model of the two.
Yes.
And that in-person's not going away. And, I'm a big believer in effectual entrepreneurship, the idea that you want to take actions based on who you are, what you know, and who you know. Right. And I think that those soft skills especially really speak to developing a part of entrepreneurship people don't consider, which is who you know, right?
Exactly.
And not in a way that is maybe like a privileged relationship and saying, well, you got that contract because of this, but in the idea that for you to be able to expand your understanding, other people are sometimes the best way to do that.
Yes,
and even just to make connections.
You can't be thinking of me. When you become an entrepreneur, it's no longer... the biggest myth I've ever heard is that I want to become my own boss. And when I hear that, the hair on the back of my neck just stands right up, because I'm going, I want to be my own boss, or I want to make money. And I'm going, you've got a long road to hoe. Because that's,
Absolutely.
No, those soft skills. Look, I even look at you, Jason. That's what you've got going for you. Look at how approachable you are. Look how friendly you are. Like, people... how trustworthy you are. That's what people want to deal with.
Yeah, and I think that a part of that, thank you for one, and I think that that's what, one thing that in dealing with a lot of the partners that I have, whether it's with you or with some of the facilitators, there's this idea of authenticity and just be you.
Just be you.
And
right.
like this,
don't put on any airs.
And that's why I love, because like I always tell people I'm a vampire, and when it comes to like sucking on that entrepreneur energy, and just I live off it and I thrive off it, and that's what this is all about. And I mean, like, you want to talk about a story of the naive pioneer. I think this has been phenomenal. And to close it off, we talked about a lot of change that's happened in the past 20 years, and it's just going to keep coming. But
we could talk 20 years from now if I was still around. We could still talk. Actually, I'll be around in 20 years, and we can talk a little bit more about the changes that we see, Jason. It's amazing. I mean, you already said this world has changed faster in the last 10 years than it has in the past 100.
That's it, right? And I think the key there is that adapting to change comes in some consistent things, right? And just, there's only so much that you can adapt to, and use your skills that and what and do it from a place of understanding, not just a place of a fear-based reaction. Have the data that you need, the information that you need, and do the calculated risk, because that's entrepreneurship.
That's very true. That when we say risky business, no, we're not. It's a calculated risk that you take, and you've got to be willing to do that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Gillian, so much for being the first guest on the Albertapreneur podcast, and just helping 1,600 graduates through the self-employment program. Graduates that we're going to be hearing from over the next, we got 1,600 of them, so we'll see how far we get down the list.
Let's go 1,600 more, Jason.
There you go. All right. If you or anyone that you know could benefit from the self-employment training program, please connect them with us or execuserv Plus. The best way probably is to visit the Albertapreneur website, or just call execuserv at 403-320-5604. One of the things that I'm fond of saying is that an entrepreneur does, on average, 7 jobs in their business. One of those is marketing, but it's something that business owners struggle with, especially in the digital age. So if you need assistance, the Digital Service Squad may be able to help you out. Available to business organizations all across Alberta, as long as you're registered in the province, have between 0 and 49 employees. The Digital Service Squad will connect you with experts one-on-one and pay for up to 5 hours of support, whether it's search engine optimization, website design, social media marketing, or an overall overview of what you do for that digital side of your business. If you're in the Lethbridge region and you're interested in the Digital Service Squad, you can go to Community Futures Lethbridge website, fill out a form, and get connected with those experts today. You don't have to go it alone.